In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve genetics problem using Punnett square. So this is your activity for this week. Remember, before you do this activity, make sure to attend our Zoom meeting or watch this video until the end. Direction is review what alleles, genotypes, and phenotypes, analyze the example I'm going to show you, and later on, you're going to solve several genetics problem. So remember, there are two types of alleles, dominant, which is written in capital letter, recessive, which is written in small letter. So any letter would do, but usually the letter used is the first letter of the dominant trait, which is in phenotype, which I will tell you later on. There are three types of genotypes. You have homozygous dominant, wherein two alleles are dominant, all capital letter. Homozygous recessive, all alleles are small letters. And heterozygous, which is a pairing of dominant allele and recessive allele. There are two types of phenotype. We have a dominant trait and a recessive trait. So the dominant trait is shown when you have the two genotypes, either homozygous dominant, all capital, and heterozygous. So remember, in heterozygous, even if it's a combination of a dominant and recessive allele, what will be shown is the dominant trait. And we have the recessive trait, which is shown by only one genotype, which is homozygous recessive, pairing of two recessive allele. So let's now have this example. So I'm going to erase this because I want us to start from the very beginning without answers yet. Okay. So what you will see in your activity is somewhat similar to this, only that I provided the crossing and the Punnett square already. All you need to do is fill in the question mark in the table. Okay, so we're gonna have several example. I have to copy this. All right. So first, let's have pairing of two homozygous dominant. So a green pea plant, so this is the genotype, this is the phenotype, green pea plant, is being crossed with another green pea plant, which is also a homozygous dominant. So it's gonna be homozygous dominant being crossed with another homozygous dominant. So possible allele of parent 1. So parent 1 is on the left. So since there's only one type of allele, then the possible allele is just the homozygous. The dominant allele. For parent 2, it's the same thing. It's also a dominant allele. So if we're gonna make a Punnett square out of this, since there is only one type of allele for each type, we're gonna have a Punnett square which is 1 by 1, like this. So this is called 1 by 1 because there's only one allele for parent 1 and one allele for parent 2. So we're going to make it smaller. So this one is not necessary. So we're just going to put black on that. All right. So this is where you put the parent 1. And this is where you put the parent 2. So parent 1 goes here, parent 2 goes here. So when you pair this up, what you will have is two homozygous, two dominant allele, which is homozygous dominant. So genotype is only homozygous dominant. And since this is all capital letter, the phenotype is the dominant trait. So how to know which one is dominant? Since the color of dominant is green, then this should be also a green pea plant. All right? So what will happen if the crossing is between, let's say, yellow? So we know now that the recessive is yellow. So what will happen if uh, it's going to be a crossing of two homozygous recessive or two yellow pea plant? I'm going to copy this first for example later. All right. Okay, so we have homozygous recessive, sorry, autocorrect, and another homozygous recessive. Remember that we're only using the same letter in here. So even if the trait is yellow, we're not going to use Y because the dominant, we know from the first problem, the dominant is green, which means we're going to use letter G even if the color is yellow. But we're going to use small letter because this is homozygous recessive, which signify yellow color. All right. So possible allele for parent 1 again, it's only the recessive allele because there's only one type of allele here. Same thing with here. So basically, we're also going to use the same Punnett square from the first example because there's only one type. Right? But instead of using dominant allele, we'll use recessive allele. And the pairing of the two is homozygous recessive allele. So this is going to be homozygous recessive. And because this is both recessive, it's no longer going to be green, but the phenotype will already be yellow. Pea plant. Right? Okay. So what will happen if a dominant will cross with a recessive, or homozygous dominant will cross with recessive? So this is going to be green again since this is a dominant, homozygous dominant, and this is still going to be yellow because this is two recessive allele or homozygous recessive. So the crossing would be homozygous dominant crossing with homozygous recessive. So possible allele for parent 1, only one type, which is a dominant allele. Possible allele for parent 2, only one type because the only allele present in here is recessive allele. Okay, so one type, still one by one. So we're still gonna copy the same Punnett square, but we will just change the content inside. So parent 1 is homozygous, dominant allele. So this is gonna be capital G. This one is a recessive allele, so small g. We're not gonna change that. And the pairing is dominant and recessive. It's heterozygous. Okay. And what would be the phenotype? Remember, combination of dominant and recessive, green and yellow. What will win is green. Because according to law of dominance, when dominant allele is paired up with recessive allele, the result will be the dominant trait. Okay. One more example. Right. What if we are pairing These are all still question mark. What we are pairing is a green pea plant, which is a homozygous dominant, and another green pea plant, but a heterozygous. Okay, and we're also gonna do the same thing if we have a yellow is a homozygous recessive and a green plant which is heterozygous. Okay, so the solution in here would be the same, only that we're changing the alleles. So let's do first this example. A green pea plant, which is a homozygous dominant, is being crossed with a green pea plant, which is a heterozygous. So it's a crossing between homozygous dominant and heterozygous. So possible allele here is only one, which is a dominant allele. But for here, there are two. So we have dominant allele and recessive allele. So we're going to have 1 by 2 Punnett square. So we'll insert 1 by 2 Punnett square. So do not notice the other number, the two numbers in here. What we're counting in here is the crossing. So this is 1 by 2. So 1 by 2 looks like 2 by 3 in here. Okay, again, this one is insignificant. So we're just going to block it. So we're going to put the allele of the parent 1 in here and the two alleles of parent 2. So what will be the crossing now? Dominant and dominant. We have homozygous dominant. Dominant, recessive, heterozygous. So we now have two types of genotypes. Homozygous dominant and heterozygous. So what is the color of the two? They are both green because this is green and this is also green. Again, law of dominance, combination is still green or dominant trait. So trait may vary from problem to problem. So you have to know which one is a dominant trait, which one is a recessive trait. Next example is just the same. So I'm just going to copy the solution in here. Okay, only that you have a yellow pea plant here. Okay, so instead of homozygous dominant, we're going to have homozygous recessive, still crossing with the same parent, heterozygous. Okay, possible allele of parent 1 now is not dominant allele, but a recessive allele because the only type of allele here is recessive, which is small letter. So we're not going to change the possible alleles for parent 2 because we did not change the parent. Okay? So parent 1 goes here. Parent 2 is still the same. It goes here. So when you pair this to this, we're going to have heterozygous. Remember that even if parent 1 has the recessive allele and parent 2 has the dominant allele, the capital is still written first before the small letter. So that is heterozygous. So this one, you cross it with this one, you're going to have homozygous recessive. So we now have two types of genotypes again, heterozygous recessive and homozygous recessive. I mean, heterozygous and homozygous recessive. So, do they have the same color? No. Okay? Because this is a green pea plant and this one is a yellow pea plant. So remember, this one is not green. It's a combination of yellow allele and another yellow allele, which is both recessive allele. So the color must be yellow already. Okay? Now what's gonna happen? This one is the most complicated, I think, the longest version or the longest problem you're gonna encounter. Or a one for a two alleles, I mean two traits or one trait only. So what if you're crossing a green pea plant, which is a heterozygous, and another green pea plant, which is also heterozygous? So you're now gonna have both heterozygous parents. Just move it a little so you can see. So for the possible alleles of parent 1, there are already two of them. Dominant allele and recessive allele. So since we did not change the parent 2, it's going to be the same. So two types of alleles in parent 2. So there are two types of alleles. So we're going to have 2 by 2 Punnett square. We're going to delete this one because this is 1 by 2. So insert table, which is 2. Again, we're not counting the first one. 2 by 2. Make it smaller. All right, this one is not significant. Okay, so allele of parent 1 goes here. Allele of parent 2 goes here. Okay, as you can see, this is the largest Punnett square compared to the other Punnett square because parents are all heterozygous. All right, so this is just for one character only. All right, now for the crossing, you cross dominant allele with another dominant allele, you'll have homozygous dominant. You cross recessive allele with a dominant allele, you're going to have heterozygous. So remember, capital goes first. You cross dominant allele with recessive allele, you have heterozygous. And then recessive allele with recessive allele, you have homozygous recessive. Okay? Now we have different types of genotypes now. We have dominant allele, homozygous dominant, two heterozygous, and one homozygous recessive. Okay? So these two are both green pea plant. Okay? Homozygous dominant and heterozygous are both green pea plant, and only one is a yellow plant. Okay? So I'm gonna add something. You don't have to include this in the activity. This is called probability. So this is not included in your activity, but I thought I might as well include this in this video. So probability is what is the chance of having a green pea plant or having a yellow plant when your parents or when the parents are like this. Okay, so based on the Punnett square, there are four possible. So it could either there are four possible offspring because this is 2 by 2. There are four quadrant in here. Okay, so the probability is gonna be out of 4. Okay, so for genotype, The possibility of having homozygous dominant is 1 out of 4 because there's only one homozygous dominant in here out of 4.
Here's a reminder. I will talk to somebody. Here's a reminder.
Alexa, stop. Okay, so this is gonna be 1 of 4. Okay, now for a probability to have heterozygous, since there are 2 of them, it's gonna be 2 out of 4, or basically 1/2. So if you get the lowest term of 2/4, it's 1/2, right? So it's like a math lesson or math concept. And for the homozygous recessive, it's 1 out of 4 as well because there's only one homozygous recessive out of 4 offspring. So that's for genotype. For phenotypes, all of these are green. So it's gonna be 3 out of 4. And this is the only yellow. So having yellow offspring, the probability is 1 out of 4. And that's the end for this video. So just email me if you have any question. And also don't forget to attend our Zoom meeting on Wednesday. Thank you. See you.